Well, it's a beautiful facility. I was really looking forward to coming up, and obviously we're testing the waters this year. I think that obviously it's got great potential. You've obviously got a ready-made clientele, and hey, hopefully we can sort of add to that and really add to the amenities that the great amenities that you have here. And I mean, it's I heard about this golf course years ago when one of the girls that I taught actually won the LPGA event here. Her name was Florence de Scamp. If you look on record there, she was a great player from Belgium, and she won the LPGA event here. So I heard all about it and how pretty the area was, and what all the things that go on here. And so no, we're really pleased to be here, and it's nice to sort of be able to mingle with some of your members and show them a little bit about what we do.
The difficulty of being up here is the season is so short. So how do you make golf a year-round sport, being from the Northeast?
Well, that's a tough thing, obviously. I mean, it is that you have a very short season here. I mean, I was speaking to one of the gentlemen this morning who lives in the area, has a simulator at his house, and that's great if you can do that. But unfortunately, I say it is one of those games where you need to sort of play it fairly often to sort of keep up a reasonable skill level. But you can do some things over the winter, just keeping yourself fit. I mean, if you play 5 or 6 months, and you even swing a club a couple of times a week, maybe swing a heavy club, do some form of yoga, just to keep the body limber and flexible. It makes a huge difference when you come back to the game when the weather turns. So I think a lot of people too. I mean, a lot of people can over golf, and so it's a nice combination. Obviously, be able to ski in the winter and play golf during the rest of the year.
Do you have a preference of working with younger, you're about to do junior clinic, versus sort of an older demographic in terms of what their potential might be, what you can show them? I mean, is there anything more rewarding or that you get out of each demographic?
It's really, I mean, I enjoy teaching all levels of players, kids, seniors, tour players, beginners. I mean, obviously I spend a lot of my time working with tour players and elite level players, but it's rewarding working with kids. And the thing is with kids, they're very malleable, and you can mold them at a young age, and they're like sponges, and they can do things that a lot of older people who are more set in their ways, a little stiffer, cannot do. So from that respect, it's probably easier teaching the kids, and because they can really improve at a dramatic rate. It's a case really of just giving them a little passion for the game, and hopefully see them continue it and to keep playing as they get older.
How's the golf teaching industry changed since you first got into it?
Well, it is more of an industry now. Golf is an industry, the business of teaching. In the old days, it pretty much was the club professional would, obviously do his shop duties and play and teach, and there's still a little bit of that around, certainly. But nowadays, teaching is becoming a real specialized art, where you're learning all sorts of things about the anatomy and how the brain works and so on and so forth, really trying to increase our knowledge, so to be able to sort of help the average golfer. And let's face it, I mean, listen, the number of elite players in the world are 0.00 whatever percent. The average golfer is you're talking in terms of probably a 15 to 24 handicap. They're the mainstream. So these are the people we have to sort of look at and help. And it is interesting that now with the advent of video analysis and so on and so forth, we can help people in a fashion that probably we couldn't do in the past.
Talk about, you mentioned it in your clinic, but how the women's game is changing. It's gotten so young now and so talented and so diverse.
Yeah, well, it is interesting how the women's game has changed dramatically over the last, 10, 15 years. With obviously the Asian tour players, how the Asian countries have really taken to the game tremendously, and you can see how on the LPGA tour now there's probably 30 or probably 40 Korean girls alone. Apart from, you've got girls from China and Taiwan and Japan certainly. So I mean the Asian bloc as a whole probably are more than 50% of the tour now. So and they're extremely hard workers. They have an unbelievable work ethic, and the young American players, players like Michelle Wee and Paula Creamer and so on and so forth, and really going to have to step up to the plate here because these girls are hungry, and so it's interesting how, I mean, the girls are fitter now, they're hitting the ball longer, they're bigger and stronger than they were 20 years ago. So, the game's changing, it's evolving as with all sport.
And I guess the last question, obviously U.S. Open last weekend, and people were talking about the course, just how the course comes into play in terms of how difficult it can get and what a player has to take into account every time they pick up a club in terms of what they're playing around them.
Well, I think it goes to show how tough Pebble Beach was, what the setup was like for the U.S. Open. I mean, they normally play a regular tour event there, and it's a totally different set of circumstances there. I mean, they had some amateurs playing, I think, in the Golf Digest Challenge or whatever they call it. They played at the course in its entirety in the same way that it would be set up for a U.S. Open the week before, and I think the best score and out of some pretty good players was 97, I think. And so, I mean, it's so difficult. I mean, it really is. It's so penal. I mean, not only just the fact there's more rough and the fairways are narrower, but around the greens. I mean, the greens are, they're firm, they're hard, they run off into areas where you've got to know how to hit little delicate shots, and we could see. I mean, the scoring, obviously, especially the Sunday was not that good, and so somebody like Graham McDowell, who won it, just sort of hung in there really, and so it's a real tough test. In fact, if the pros had to play a golf course the way the USGA set up the US Open every week, their careers will probably last 3 or 4 years, because it's so mentally taxing that the concentration level needed. It's just every single shot. There's just no let up, and so that's what US Open's all about. It's just more of an endurance test than anything else, and obviously their goal is to get the best player to win. So.
But what about for a beginner? What should they know about the course before they get on it?
Well, you talking about like a US Open type course?
No, just in general.
Well, if a beginner going on a golf course, I mean, look, it's a golf course has you got tees, you got fairways, you've got greens, you've got rough, you've got bunkers, and so for the average golfer, knowing more than anything else, it's the average golfer, let's put it this way, could think their way around a golf course, maybe hit 3 wood off a tee so they don't get to certain bunkers. And I always say, look, and people say to me, well, I'm a 20 handicap. I say, well, you know what, you want to play golf like this. You want to think in terms of not par 72, this is par 90 for you, okay? So every par 3 is a par 4 is a par 5 is a par 6. And your goal, okay, is to shoot those scores on those holes. If you can make a 5 on a par 4, then you've parred the hole. And so don't try to sort of hit it as far as you can, or try to knock it on the green in 2 on a par 4. A 0 handicap would, because that's what they have to do. And hitting the green in regulation, as it's termed. But if you can look at it from that standpoint, it makes golf less taxing. You don't create these impossible situations. Your expectations aren't that high, and so you go out there and you play within yourself. So hey, you might play, and if it's a toughish par 4, it's a longer par 4. Well, hey, hit a 3 wood, then hit a 6 iron, and then hit a little wedge on the green, and 2 putt, make your 5. Probably a heck of a lot better than trying to smash a driver, hitting it out of bounds, and then, or get it, even if you hit it on the fairway, and try to hit your next one, as hard as you can, and hitting it, in a bunker or burying the lip or whatever the case may be. But it's just playing sensibly, and so that's why we have handicaps in golf. So just think, if amateurs or high handicappers, I mean, hey, if you're a beginner, you could literally think of 108 being par, 36 over, 36 handicap. So you're allowed a double bogey every hole, and so you go along and you play like that, because a lot of golf is up here. It's not just standing out there and making a good swing and hitting a perfect shot. It's all about hitting the ball in the right places in order to score. That's what it's all about.